It was supposed to be a normal Sunday dinner in a quiet Midwestern suburb. The table was set, the air filled with the smell of roasted chicken, and the television hummed faintly in the background. But behind the closed doors of one modest home, tension had been boiling for years. A father, exhausted from endless arguments. A daughter, furious at the thought of losing her comfort. And one ultimatum that would change everything. When she was told to move out, she didn't just argue. She reacted in a way no one in that neighborhood could have imagined. So the question is, how did a simple demand to grow up turn into a crime scene that shook an entire community? The story takes us to Bloomington, Indiana. A safe, leafy town filled with college students, church families, and neighbors who knew one another by name. At the center of it lived 22-year-old Amanda Klein. To outsiders, she seemed like any other young woman. She had dyed blonde hair, always changing styles, a piercing laugh, and a circle of friends who describe her as wild but fun. But inside her home, life was different. Amanda still lived with her father, Mark Klein, a 52-year-old mechanic known in town as dependable and hardworking. He'd raised Amanda largely on his own after her mother left years earlier. Friends often said he sacrificed everything for his daughter. He bought her a used car, paid for community college classes, even let her stay home rent-free. But as she reached her 20s, Mark grew frustrated. Amanda skipped classes, partied late, and refused to contribute to the household. What neighbors saw as just a girl finding herself. Mark saw as a pattern of laziness, entitlement, and escalating fights. And in the weeks leading up to that fateful night, Mark made a decision. Amanda had to leave. Stay tuned as we unravel this mystery, and click that subscribe button now, cause this true crime series would send chills down your spine. It wasn't sudden. The conversations began quietly. Amanda, you need to start planning your future. Then firmer. I can't keep paying for everything. It's time for you to find your own place. Each time, Amanda's reaction grew sharper. Slammed doors. Screaming matches. One neighbor later admitted they heard yelling nearly every weekend. And on June 18th, 2021, Mark finally issued the ultimatum. You have until the end of the month to move out. I'm serious this time. To Mark, it was a final effort to push his daughter toward independence. To Amanda, it felt like abandonment. Later, investigators would piece together text messages and journal entries that showed Amanda's anger boiling into obsession. She felt humiliated, betrayed, even cornered. And that night, the argument exploded. Imagine being a neighbor, hearing raised voices that carried into the street. A father shouting, "You can't live here forever." And a daughter screaming back words no parent should ever hear. "Then you won't live to see me leave." Minutes later, the quiet cul-de-sac was pierced by a sound that would haunt the neighborhood forever. When police arrived at the Klein home after a frantic 911 call from a neighbor, they found Mark lying in the living room, unresponsive. Amanda was there too, pacing, shaking, insisting it was an accident. But detectives immediately noticed something chilling. There were no signs of forced entry, no intruder, no random crime. This was personal. Amanda's story shifted within hours. First, she claimed her father collapsed during the argument. Then, she said he had attacked her and she acted in self-defense. But blood patterns on the floor told another story. So did the neighbors, who had heard only one phrase screamed again and again before the silence. "I'm not leaving." Detectives began piecing together Amanda's movements in the days leading up to the crime. Purchases made with a debit card raised eyebrows. Items like a new knife, cleaning supplies, and gloves, bought just 48 hours before her father's death. Was this really a crime of passion? Or had she been planning to react all along? The town of Bloomington was left reeling. A father dedicated to his daughter, gone. A young woman with her whole life ahead of her, now the prime suspect. But as investigators dug deeper, they uncovered secrets in Amanda's digital life that painted an even darker picture. Because buried in her private messages was a shocking confession of intent, one that prosecutors would later call the smoking gun. And it would turn this case from a tragedy into something far more disturbing. Bloomington police already knew one thing. Mark Klein's death wasn't random. The house was locked, the struggle confined, and the only witness, his own daughter Amanda. But when detectives pulled Amanda's phone, they didn't just find heated arguments or angry texts. They stumbled into a secret world that showed exactly what she had been planning, days before the night she snapped. The evidence was so chilling that even seasoned investigators later admitted this wasn't just a fight gone wrong. She wrote her father's death into existence. Within 24 hours of the crime, Amanda was brought in for questioning. She sat across from two detectives, arms crossed, mascara smudged, swearing she didn't mean for anything to happen. She repeated the same line again and again. He wanted me gone. I just wanted him to listen. But investigators weren't buying it, because while Amanda insisted her actions were spontaneous, her phone told a different story. On Amanda's phone, detectives found text messages to a friend that read like diary entries of rage. If he pushes me again, I swear I'll make him regret it. He doesn't get it. I'm not going anywhere. And just 2 nights before the crime, he's dead to me already. Worse, her internet search history revealed something even darker. Searches like, how long before a body smells in a house? Can police trace text threats? Easiest way to get rid of blood. For investigators, this was a turning point. Amanda hadn't just reacted. She had been rehearsing. And the friend she'd been texting? She later told police Amanda had joked about never leaving the house, because if her father forced her out, she'd make sure he left first. What started as a family argument was now looking like cold intent. As these details leaked into the press, Bloomington residents were stunned. Mark Klein wasn't just another name. He was a neighbor who lent tools, the mechanic who fixed cars on credit, the dad who showed up at every one of Amanda's school plays when she was younger. Now, the man everyone admired had been killed, allegedly by the very person he sacrificed the most for. One neighbor told reporters, he gave her everything. She had no reason to hurt him. This wasn't just murder. This was betrayal. But prosecutors knew sympathy wasn't enough to win a conviction. They needed evidence that tied Amanda directly to the act, not just angry words. And that's when they found something in her room that made the case undeniable. Detectives combing Amanda's room uncovered a spiral notebook shoved beneath her mattress. Inside were handwritten rants, page after page of fury at her father. One chilling entry read, if he makes me leave, I'll make sure he never wakes up to see it. Next to the notebook was a crumpled receipt from a hardware store. It matched purchases Amanda made just days earlier. Gloves, bleach, a hunting knife. Forensic testing confirmed the knife had traces of Mark's DNA. Suddenly, the defense of self-defense crumbled. Amanda hadn't just reacted in the heat of the moment. She had prepared. And when confronted with the evidence and interrogation, her reaction was as cold as it was telling. She smirked, rolled her eyes, and said words that made even hardened detectives pause. Well, I told him I wasn't moving out. With digital records, written threats, and physical evidence mounting, prosecutors had everything they needed to charge Amanda Klein with murder. But the courtroom would reveal something far more disturbing. Because when the trial began, Amanda didn't break down in tears. She didn't plead for forgiveness. Instead, she turned her father's death into a stage, and the performance she gave shocked everyone in attendance. To keep up with this series and even more interesting true crime stories that never came to light until now, hit the red subscribe button. Now back to the story. The trial of Amanda Klein wasn't just about murder. It was about betrayal at the deepest level, a child turning against a parent who gave up everything for them. And when Amanda entered that courtroom, she didn't behave like a grieving daughter. She behaved like a performer. The way she reacted to the testimony about her father's final moments didn't just shock jurors, it left even hardened reporters speechless. By the time jury selection ended, the courthouse was buzzing with cameras and reporters. Amanda sat at the defense table, dressed neatly in a black dress her attorneys had chosen. Her hair was tied back, makeup minimal, a look designed to soften her image. But her demeanor told a different story. Instead of sorrow, she carried irritation, like she was bored with the process. When the judge read the charges aloud, second-degree murder and evidence tampering, Amanda sighed audibly and crossed her arms. For a moment, it looked less like a murder trial and more like a rebellious teenager being scolded in detention. The prosecution began with a timeline. They walked the jury through Amanda's fights with her father, her text messages to friends, and her chilling online searches. Each piece of evidence painted the same picture. Amanda wasn't reacting in the heat of the moment. She was preparing. Then came the medical examiner. He explained, in steady detail, that Mark Klein hadn't died instantly. He had defensive wounds, evidence he tried to fight off the attack. His final moments were likely spent in shock and pain, calling out to the very person inflicting the injuries. The courtroom fell into silence. And Amanda? She chuckled. A smirk spread across her face, as if the testimony was a nuisance. Gasps erupted from the gallery. One juror looked visibly shaken. That small reaction became the moment everyone remembered. The neighbors testified next. One recalled hearing Mark's voice shouting, "You can't live here forever." And Amanda screaming back, "Then you won't live to see me leave." It was devastating. Then came Amanda's cousin, who described Mark as a man who sacrificed everything after Amanda's mother left. Instead of crying, Amanda rolled her eyes. She leaned toward her attorney and whispered, "He chose that." The courtroom was stunned. It was as though Amanda wanted everyone to see her contempt. Amanda's lawyers tried to argue she had acted in self-defense. They painted Mark as a strict, sometimes overbearing father. But the mountain of evidence crushed that narrative. The notebook under her mattress, her text messages, her purchases at the hardware store, each piece connected like a chain. And Amanda herself kept breaking the image her defense tried to craft. At one point, the prosecutor played recordings of Amanda's police interrogation. On tape, she was heard saying coldly, "Well, I told him I wasn't moving out." Instead of showing remorse, she smiled in court as the clip played. The defense knew then they weren't just fighting evidence. They were fighting Amanda's own attitude. Reporters later spoke to several jurors about what they saw. One admitted, "We were ready to listen. We wanted to believe maybe it was a mistake. But she didn't give us anything. No tears, no regret, just arrogance." Another said Amanda's smirk during the medical examiner's testimony sealed her fate. She wasn't horrified. She wasn't even ashamed. She looked proud. For jurors, the choice became clear. After 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. Everyone rose. Cameras clicked. The verdict was read aloud. Guilty of second-degree murder. Guilty of evidence tampering. Amanda stood calmly. No tears. No apology. Instead, she smirked. Then, turning slightly toward the gallery and the cameras, she mouthed the words, I told him I wasn't leaving. Shock rippled through the room. Reporters captured it instantly. That single defiant statement became the headline across the country. The judge sentenced Amanda to 45 years in prison. And as deputies cuffed her wrists, Amanda laughed, a high-pitched, unsettling laugh that echoed off the courtroom walls. Outside, Mark's friends wept. One co-worker said through tears, "Mark was a good man. He didn't deserve this. He lived for her, and she destroyed him." Neighbors left flowers on Mark's front porch, where police tape still lingered. A handwritten note read, "You deserved better, Mark." In the weeks after sentencing, true crime forums lit up with debates. Some argued Amanda was a product of years of dysfunction. Others believed she was simply evil, incapable of empathy. The judge's final words captured the feeling best. This court has seen remorse. This court has seen regret. But in you, Amanda Klein, I see neither, only contempt. And that leaves us with a haunting question. Was Amanda Klein the product of a toxic home, or was there something darker within her all along? Do you think 45 years was enough? Or should her sentence have been harsher? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to explore another shocking family betrayal, don't miss the next story, one that proves sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones closest to us.